Okay, as it's the weekend before the Spanish writing exam, I thought I'd do a quick video on the revision tips for foundation writing. First thing is, if you want any topic vocabulary, look at something like Quizlet, go to the AQA website for vocab practice. This is more general exam technique and ways you can get around certain things and just reminders. So in terms of the photo card, the first thing you'll come up against, the idea here is to get full marks. It's the easiest part of the exam for a reason. So the key thing is en la foto hay. Make sure you spell I correctly, H-A-Y. Don't leave it out. You can then name whatever objects you want in the photo. Do remember, if there are women and men in the photo, one of them can be en la foto hay, however many hombres. Don't say hombres y mujeres in the same one, because then you basically don't have one to say for the second one. So one line, en la foto hay unos hombres, en la foto hay unas mujeres for the second line. You can talk about how they're feeling. We did this in the GCSE speaking test. Está contento or están contentos, to say that they're happy if you want. If they're not happy, simply just say no están contentos. A lot of pictures from previous years, some of them have been what you could arguably say is a party. So you've got people, Christmas was one of them, you've had people outside looking like they're celebrating at a barbecue, you've had birthdays, so here you can say es una fiesta, and again you are describing what's going on in the photo, so that could easily pick you up 2 marks, keeping it nice and simple. If the photo is taking place indoors, quite simply, you can say where you think they are. Pienso que están en. I think they are in. It could be they're in una casa, un restaurante, sorry, autocorrect took off the E there, or un colegio, to say they're in a school. If you say pienso que, saying I think that, means that even if the examiner might tend to disagree, you may still get the marks for it. But there are other things we can do as well. If they're outdoors, for example, you can say you think it's hot. You notice I said hace calor there, to say it's hot rather than sunny, because again, if there's no sun in the sky or if it's quite cloudy, we wouldn't know. If they're wearing short sleeves, however, you can say hace calor. Pienso que hace calor. And if they're wearing long sleeves, pienso que hace frío. These sentences you've got here are quite a catch-all for quite a lot of the photos that may turn up. Going on from there, common words I think you probably need the word hombre or hombres, the word for mujer, mujeres, so you've got men, you've got women, niños, niñas for any children that are in the photo, personas if you just want to be general, so you can say dos personas, tres personas, and so on. Funnily enough, tables do come up quite a lot in these photos. So una mesa is a table. It's likely you may need that because there's been one where people have been eating at a restaurant, people have been in a cafe, at a barbecue, at a birthday, at a Christmas dinner. All of these have tables in them. So una mesa is going to be important for you to know. Comida, the general catch-all of food. Please don't say comidas, that foods or meals. Much better say en la foto hay comida. So there's food there if there is in fact food. And bebidas. If you're not sure what the drinks are, you can say bebidas as well as saying agua, té, café. But bebidas would be, again, a bit of a catch-all. With that, if you've got most of that under your belt, you should be able to answer that first question without any trouble whatsoever. Remember, don't overcomplicate it. It is meant to be the easiest question. Nice, short sentences that make sense and that say what is in the photo. So we move on to the 40 words. The 40 words, the main thing we need to remember about this is variety and opinions. In the past 8 years, I think it's been, there's been 2 40 words on school, there's been 3 on free time, one's been on holidays, one's been on technology, one's been on house and region. If I were a betting man, I would say we're probably looking at theme 2 again this year, just because we haven't had anything from theme 2 for a little while. That's holidays, home and region. I might say it could be house, but again, I'm not sure, and we shouldn't always listen to people that say that they think it's going to be a certain question. The key words that you'll need to know, of course, your opinion phrases, falling back on me gusta, me encanta, odio. Remember, it's not me odio. If you say me odio, it means I hate myself. You just need odio on its own. One word means I hate. I, to say there is. Remember, you can make that negative, not I, as well, to add some variety. Porque, because, and as variety, use ya que as well. Means the same thing as porque, used in the same way. So use them both. by ways of an example, this is what a 40-word question might look like. And I generally ignore most of the stuff around it, and I just zoom in on what are the 4 bullet points there. We've got dormitorio, casa, pueblo, and el clima en tu región. Notice as well, I've kept the keywords up there. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to decide what we're going to write. Now, I'll always start off with a bit of an opinion. Mi dormitorio es mi habitación favorita. For example, ¿por qué es? You notice I've used ¿por qué es? Given an opinion. It's my favorite room, and I've said why. Grande y me gusta descansar allí. If you struggle to do that last bit, the first part of the sentence up to grande would still be an appropriate answer to that bullet point. It is about 10 words as well. You have to write 10 words per bullet point as a sort of an approximate figure. And remember, if you write more than 40 words in total, they will mark all of it. The second bullet point, tu casa, going back to year 7 now. Vivo en una casa. I've used enorme. Now, I've used enorme because I've already said grande for the bedroom, so I want to make sure that I've used a different word to basically describe the same thing. I'm showing variety. Con mi familia en Inglaterra y me gusta mucho. Now you notice I've used me gusta mucho to differentiate it from up above where it just says me gusta. I could have said me encanta there if I'd wanted to as well. Going on, me encanta mi pueblo. I'm talking about my town now. Mi pueblo, ya que. I've used ya que there because up above I've said por qué already. So I want to show variety. Hay, one of our keywords to say there is, muchos parques y una biblioteca, pero no hay piscina. This is what I usually try to do, which is to say 2 things that there are so that I can say y, so parks and library. Parques y biblioteca, and then to contrast it with something that isn't. So, porque, pero no hay piscina. Going on, el clima en tu región. El clima en mi región es is one of my worst ways I could start that sentence. It asks about the climate, the weather in your region. Please do not start off saying the weather in my region is. It's very difficult to make a sentence sound good there. You do need to just use your weather vocabulary. I say en mi región normalmente hace sol. Normally, it's sunny. Sin embargo, llueve a veces. So I've used sin embargo there because I'd already used pero, and I've used a veces as a time phrase meaning sometimes. So I've not said at all the climate in my region is or the weather in my region is because it does sound bad. We want to just tell us what is the weather like in your region. You do not need to say the weather is. Question 3 on these papers is the translation. I've gone through the past 8 years of translations to find some general patterns and things that they generally do like to have, just to make sure that you're aware of what's going to come up. There's always 5 sentences to translate. Certain parts of it are a little bit fussy that we do need to be aware of. The common things that you're going to need is to talk about going places. So this is where you'll say voy to mean I go or I am going. Va, he, she, or it goes or is going. And vamos, we go or we are going. These 3 should cover you for most of the talking about going places. It has turned up quite a bit. A bit of a note here. If you're going to a place, you need to say a. I've seen people write tu before tu, which means you or your. Make sure you say a. Voy al cine, voy a la piscina. If you don't have the a there, you usually will not get marked. So if you're going to somewhere, it needs to be voy a, or if it's your brother, va a wherever. There's another thing that comes up, which is I. Make sure for the 40 word you need to know it as well. I there is. Talking about having comes up pretty much every year, so make sure that you're comfortable with tengo, which I know a lot of you will be. Tiene, he or she has, is the other one that I'd want you to know just in case. Moving on from there, in each of the translations, there is a past and a future tense. So one of the questions will have a past tense, one of the questions will have a future tense. For the past tense, in the last five of the last 8 exams, the key word is went. So that's where you'll need to say fui or fuimos. Genuinely, it's quite surprising to me to see how often they repeat that. So as long as you're comfortable with that, you've got a 50-50 chance of it being the same this year, I'd say. Remember, in Spanish, going somewhere, you need, when you're saying you're going to somewhere, fui a España, fui a Inglaterra. The other 3 past tenses used over the past few years, visité, for I visited, comí, I ate, and compré for I bought. These are the three that have been used, apart from the ones that used fui. What I would say is it's unlikely to be an irregular verb that they'll use for these because these three past tenses are completely regular, so they're easy to form. The guesses for this year might be bebi for I drank, might be escuché for I listened, might be bi for I watched or I saw. The future tense, however, it's either going to or wanting something. So in a similar way, you do need to be aware of this boy a with an infinitive. One of those words ends in ar, er, or ir to say what you're going to do. Ba'a for he or she is going to. Quiero, I want to do something, but also quiere for he or she wants to do something. If it's your friend, your brother, your sister, your mum, your dad, they might want to do something. And then we move on just to some handy words. I've noticed in a few of them you do get modes of transport. Most of you will be happy with coche, but then it does confuse a bit with that autocar. Coche looks like coach, but it means car. Autocar has the word car in it, but it means coach. And the word moto for motorbike might come up again. I'm not sure, but modes of transport have turned up every once in a while. Technology does come up, the word for computer and laptop. Have come up a surprising amount, so you might see mobile this year as well. You might again see ordenador and portátil. You might see tableta as well. Descargar to download, just to put in there to make sure we're safe. Days of the week have come up about 3 or so times. It's worth just going over them. Again, you're probably aware of them, but just double check them before the exam. Lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves, viernes, sábado, domingo. The 7 you'll need. Make sure you pick the ones that you don't know and revise those that little bit more. Other adjectives that come up quite a bit, the word pobre has caught people out a couple of times. Mucho, to mean a lot, comes up a bit. So me gusta mucho is I like a lot. So just remember that mucho to qualify some of those nouns. New has come up a few times. Nuevo. Old, I think, may come up then because it does. You'll see viejo means old, but antiguo can mean things that are old but also previous. So mi antiguo profe, my previous teacher, or my former teacher, and also mi profe antiguo, my teacher that is old. We have the word next and last. These two, one of these two comes up every year. You need to know próximo, you need to know pasado in order to make sure you secure those marks. Not adjectives, but also helpful, the word más and menos, which do, again, come up just to qualify the adjectives. And without those little words, you may lose out on a mark. So I want to make sure you're prepared. 90 words we move on to. That's your question 4. Every single year you will have a choice of 2 questions for question 4. So you'll need to pick the one you feel like you can say more about without repeating yourself. So make sure you can say a few different things about whatever you've chosen, because if you repeat the same activities and the same ideas, you will not get as high a mark for the range of language. You don't need to have an equal coverage of bullet points, so you can write 10 words for one of them and 30 words or 40 words for another. As long as you've mentioned each of the bullet points, you will be fine and you will have access to the full range of marks. One of the bullet points is going to require a past tense, one a future tense. One of them will ask for an opinion, and one of them can be a little bit random, but generally asks for what you normally do, so asking for a present tense, asks for a preference between 2 things, or asks for your ideas about something. This is based on the exam papers for AQA for the past few years. As a last reminder, you can write more than 90 words. They will mark everything you write. However, if you write fewer than 90 words, it might be you don't have enough written to satisfy the mark scheme to get full marks. So, to go over some past tense bullet points, the way you're going to recognize them. If you see ¿qué hiciste? What did you do? If you see ¿cómo pasaste? How did you spend? ¿Cómo celebraste? How did you celebrate? There's also like visitaste. Anything that ends in aste or iste is going to be your key that is a past tense question. So, in order to answer them, what I'll advise you to do is pick a time, phrase, or a location from the question prompt. You'll want to say you went somewhere, oui a. You'll want to give 2 activities you did and 1 you didn't, just for the variety. My advice, vi, I saw, comí, I ate, hablé, I spoke. You'll see this in some examples coming up. And say how it was, using fue to say it was fun, interesting, great, anything like that. So our example past tenses. Our prompt here, ¿qué hiciste con tu familia durante un día divertido en el pasado? So what did you do with your family during a fun day in the past? I start off with a time phrase, un día divertido en el pasado. I've then continued on to say where I went. Fui a la playa con mi familia. I've then continued on to say donde vi muchas personas, where I saw a lot of people. I've used my verb there. Y hablé con mi hermana, spoke with my sister. Fue, I've used that opinion phrase. Fue muy divertido. It was very fun. Sin embargo, no comí un helado. But I didn't eat an ice cream. So you say I've said 2 activities I did, 1 I didn't, using those 3 past tense verbs. Our next prompt, ¿qué hiciste recientemente para ganar dinero? So this one, I've tried to use the 3 same verbs. Ideally here you'd want to say trabajé, but I've tried to keep it with just those 3 verbs to show you how you can repeat some verbs with a bit of imagination. So I've gone with recientemente, and I've said fui a la biblioteca para ganar dinero. Not the most interesting thing. I'd much rather hear trabajé en una empresa, just to give you guys an idea. Hablé con clientes, I spoke with clients, y vi muchos libros. I saw a lot of books. Again, it's not the most interesting thing, but I'm getting my past tenses down. Pero no comí ya que no está permitido. I didn't eat because it's not allowed. Fue bastante aburrido. I've then finished off with my opinion, how it was. It was quite boring. Another prompt for the past tense. ¿Qué hiciste durante las vacaciones del año pasado? Now here, I've started off with our time phrase. I've lifted it right from the prompt again. Durante las vacaciones del año pasado, fui a España con mi familia. Again, where I went. I've used fui a. Remember that meaning to. Vi muchos monumentos, I saw a lot of monuments, y comí en un restaurante. So again, I'm using the same verbs. Pero no hablé español. I didn't speak Spanish. So again, 2 things I did, 1 I didn't, using the same verbs I've used in the previous 2 examples. Para mí fue increíble. For me, it was incredible. Again, you see I've used that fue. It was. Again, just to give an opinion so that I've got that little bit more information and showing I can use a past tense. The last prompt here, ¿qué hiciste la última vez que visitaste un sitio interesante en tu región? Now here, this one's a bit trickier to get the time phrases in the question. What did you do the last time that you visited an interesting place? So instead of saying the last time I visited an interesting place, I've just gone with el año pasado because maybe I'm not too confident in saying the last time I visited. The last thing I want you to do is to write visitaste in your answer. That means you visited, and that would then be incorrect. You would lose marks for that. So I've just gone with el año pasado. I picked a past tense phrase. Fui a Londres. I said where I went, who I went with. I said fue muy emocionante. I've used that fue to say how it was. I then said what I didn't do. No vi muchos artefactos en el museo. Didn't do that. Pero comí en un restaurante italiano y hablé con mis amigos. I've said the 2 things I did. I ate in a restaurant and I spoke with my friends. So once again, I'm showing that I can use a past tense, 3 verbs, same as I always have, and also use that fue. The future tense bullet points, first thing we need to do is recognize them. So, ¿qué vas a hacer? What are you going to do? ¿Qué quieres hacer? What do you want to do? ¿Qué te gustaría hacer? What would you like to do? ¿Qué planes tienes? Put stars by this because I never, ever, ever want you to write my plans are. You need to use a future tense. Don't say my plans are. We're going to show you how to answer them. So to answer them, pick a time phrase or a location from the question prompt. Start your future tense with voy a, quiero o me gustaría. I'm going to, I want, or I would like to. Use an infinitive after them. The infinitives end in ar, er, or ir. Make sure you use those. Do not use a present tense verb like jugar, anything like that. Juego, use jugar. Voy a jugar, quiero jugar, me gustaría jugar. Then use será for it will be, sería, it would be, or va a ser, it is going to be. Usually I think you'll find sería will be more useful for you to say what things would be like when you're talking about what's going to happen in the future. So an example, we've got 3 here to go through. So prompt, si te gustaría visitar un festival en España en el futuro. So here I've picked a future time phrase, en el futuro, then gone with me gustaría visitar. Un festival en España, ¿por qué? It would be. Sería muy divertido. I've then changed things up because I do want to make sure I've got variety. I've said quiero ir a la tomatina want to go to the Tomatina, y voy a viajar con mi familia. I've then used voy a. So I've got me gustaría, quiero, and voy a all in one little answer. And this is about, I think, 23, 24 words. This would be enough written for that bullet point, and the examiner will be happy with that. The next prompt I've got, si te gustaría ser profesor o profesora en el futuro. The first thing I do start off with a time phrase. En el futuro is quite an easy one to do. It lifted it straight from the question. I said, I wouldn't like to be a teacher. No me gustaría ser profesor. Porque sería, again, because it would be difficult. Y voy a ser abogado. I'm going to be a lawyer. Ya que, remember I've used ya que, means the same as porque, just gives a bit more variety. Quiero ganar mucho dinero. I've used quiero there. So I've used, once again, me gustaría, voy a, and quiero in the same answer. The next prompt, ¿dónde vas a estudiar el año próximo? I've continued with lifting the time phrase out of the question, el año próximo. I've then started off with voy a estudiar en un instituto en Italia. I've added a reason, porque me gustaría hablar italiano. I would like to speak Italian, y sería muy interesante vivir en otro país. It would be very interesting to live in another country. So here, again, I've used a future tense, I've used voy a, I've used me gustaría for variety, and then I've given a nice reason why by saying what it would be like. It would be interesting. The opinion bullet points, recognize them just from the word opinion. You guys know this. Que opinas? What do you opinion? What do you opine? That is a word. For some reason, we don't use it in English, probably because it sounds funny. And que piensas? What do you think? Now here, you don't want to start off just by saying, like my opinion is. I hate that all the time. So mi opinión is banned. Please don't say that. It's very hard to get a good sentence out of you after that. You need to give a positive opinion with a reason, give a negative opinion with a reason, vary your adjectives, use más and menos, more or less, and muy, bastante, and un poco, very, quite, and a little. Here, so if it says tu opinión sobre tus estudios, you can start by saying mi opinión sobre mis estudios es. No, actually, you wouldn't say that at all. That's banned. You'll want to start off with an opinion phrase. Me gusta mucho estudiar español. Everyone does. Porque es muy útil para las vacaciones. I've said what's very useful for, which does add a little bit of a bit more interest for you in your writing. Sin embargo, no me gusta nada el teatro, ya que es menos interesante. So I've then contrasted saying, however, I've said ya que, remember porque, it's one way of saying it, ya que is another, and menos interesante for less interesting. Continuing on, another prompt, tus opiniones sobre las tecnologías en general. I've started off in general, in general, and I've said I love it, ya que, again, another word for porque, se puede escuchar música y comprar en línea. I've given two things you can do, which backs up my opinion of saying why I love it. I've then included the however, different opinion phrase, no me gusta mi ordenador porque puede ser muy despacio. So again, I've given a reason for not liking it, varied the opinion, not had to repeat myself at all. The last part, the other bullet points. First of all, you need to recognize them. A lot of them might say, ¿qué haces? What do you do? ¿Qué prefieres? What do you prefer? Tus ideas sobre, your ideas about. So in order to answer them, it's a little bit random, a little bit hodgepodge, but just in general, never start the sentence with mis ideas es, or also me prefiero. It's just prefiero. Me prefiero means I prefer myself. Prefiero means I prefer. Make sure you spell prefiero correctly as well. I-E, I before E, please, guys, on that one. What I'd advise is start with a frequency. We've got normalmente, a menudo, meaning often, and a veces for sometimes. Follow it with an opinion on the activity. So your opinion might be normally I like to do something, normally I prefer this, and use más and menos just to add a little bit more interest to the answer as well. So the first one we've got, si prefieres pasar tu tiempo libre con tu familia o con tus amigos. Here I've started off normalmente, time phrase. Prefiero pasar tiempo con mis amigos because, porque es más interesante. However, just to get a bit of contrast, a veces, different time phrase. This is why I like contrast, because you can bring in a different time phrase. Me gusta, for a different opinion. Ver la tele, watch TV con mi familia porque me encantan las comedias. There I've used another kind of opinion phrase, but also that is a reason for liking watching the TV. In the 90 word, it's still important to have opinions and reasons, so add them in when you can and when possible. Here we've got ¿Por qué te gusta tu película favorita? Why do you like your favorite film? So I could say, normalmente, I kind of started off with my time phrase, me gusta ver mi película favorita. I've got an opinion on this activity con mi hermano, porque es más gracioso. I did say using that más and menos, it's more interesting, and it just makes it better to read. Más gracioso que, more interesting, more funny than the other films in my house. And that's really it. That's the end. I did intend for this to be quick. It's 25 minutes. I hope you've managed to make it to the end. And good luck with everything on Monday. Adios.